The orders came at 0200 hours. Elvis Presley was to report to the CO's office immediately, alone. What the Army asked him to do that freezing night in Germany would remain classified for 60 years. February 12, 1959, Ray Barracks, Friedberg, West Germany, 2 a.m. Private First Class Elvis Presley was dreaming about Memphis when the knock came. Sharp, military, insistent. He jerked awake in the darkness of the barracks, disoriented for a moment. Around him, 30 other soldiers slept in their bunks, the room filled with the sounds of snoring and the occasional murmur. "Presley," the whisper came from outside the door. "Get dressed, now." Elvis recognized the voice, Sergeant William Norwood, one of the MPs attached to their unit. Elvis had seen him around, but never spoken to him. The sergeant kept to himself, didn't socialize with the regular troops. Elvis climbed quietly out of his bunk. Sergeant Norwood led Elvis into the admin building, but they didn't stop at any of the usual offices. They kept going, down a stairwell Elvis didn't even know existed, into a basement level that wasn't on any map of the base he'd ever seen. At the bottom of the stairs was a steel door with an armed guard. The guard checked Norwood's credentials, then opened the door. Inside was a small office, spartanly furnished, a desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet, and behind the desk sat a man Elvis had never seen before. Civilian clothes, expensive suit too, expensive for anyone who worked on base. Late 40s, gray at the temples, eyes that had seen things Elvis couldn't imagine. "Private Presley," the man said, American accent, but clipped, educated, East Coast. "Sit down." Elvis sat. Sergeant Norwood remained standing by the door. "Do you know who I am, Private?" "No, sir." "Good. That's how it should be. You can call me Mr. Carter. That's not my real name, but it'll do for our purposes." Elvis said nothing. In the Army, you learned quickly. When officers, or men who acted like officers, started talking, you shut up and listened. "Private Presley, you've been under observation since you arrived at this base 6 months ago. We've been watching how you conduct yourself, how you interact with the other men, how you handle pressure, how you keep secrets." "Secrets, sir?" "You're Elvis Presley. You could have sold stories to the press about Army life, made money from interviews. Instead, you've kept your mouth shut. That shows discipline, loyalty." Carter leaned forward. "The kind of qualities we need for a very specific situation." Elvis felt his stomach tighten. What situation? Carter opened a folder on his desk. Inside were photographs, aerial shots of what looked like a military installation, buildings, fences, guard towers. But the architecture was wrong, not American, not West German. "Do you know where this is?" Elvis studied the photos. "No, sir." "This is a Soviet intelligence facility approximately 40 miles from here, just across the border in East Germany. For the past 3 months, they've been holding an American asset, a defector from their side, who has information critical to U.S. national security." "I don't understand what this has to do with me, sir." "The Soviets know who you are, Private. Everyone knows who you are. You're the most famous American in the world right now. If you were to go missing, even briefly, it would cause a massive international incident, the kind of incident that could provide exactly the cover we need to extract our asset." Elvis's blood ran cold. They weren't asking him to be bait. They were asking him to be the distraction for an operation that could start World War III. And if something went wrong, Elvis Presley would disappear behind the Iron Curtain forever. "You want me to defect?" Elvis asked slowly. "To the Soviets?" "Not defect. Appear to defect. We have intelligence that the KGB has been trying to recruit American civil servicemen. They've approached several soldiers on this base. We've been feeding them false information through controlled channels, and we've let slip that you, Private Presley, have been struggling, homesick, depressed, missing your mother." Carter's eyes flickered with something that might have been sympathy. "Your mother passed away last year, correct?" "Yes, sir." Elvis's throat tightened. "Gladys, his mama. She died in August 1958, just as he was about to ship out to Germany. The single worst moment of his life. He'd gotten emergency leave, flew home for the funeral, then had to come right back. Some nights in the barracks he still woke up crying. The Soviets think you're vulnerable. They think you could be turned. So here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow night, you're going to take a pass into Frankfurt. You're going to visit a specific bar. Details will be provided. You'll be approached by a woman. She'll be KGB. She'll offer you comfort, sympathy, understanding, and over the next few days, she'll suggest that maybe you'd be happier somewhere else, somewhere where you'd be appreciated, protected from the pressures of fame and military service. And I'm supposed to say yes? You're supposed to act interested, vulnerable. Then, 4 days from now, you're going to disappear. You'll be taken across the border into East Germany. The Soviets will believe they've successfully turned Elvis Presley. It'll be the intelligence coup of the decade for them. But I won't really be defecting? No, you'll be our Trojan horse. While the KGB is parading you around, showing off their prize, our extraction team will move in and pull out our asset. By the time the Soviets realize you're not actually defecting, we'll have you back on this base. And if something goes wrong? Carter's face was stone. Then you'll spend the rest of your life in a Soviet prison, or worse. Elvis looked at the man behind the desk, trying to read him. Was this real? Was the army really asking him to go behind enemy lines as part of some spy operation? Why me? Why not use an actual intelligence officer? Because the Soviets would see that coming. They'd be suspicious. But you're a legitimate target, a genuine asset they'd love to turn. They won't look too closely because they'll be too busy celebrating their victory. What if I say no? Carter closed the folder. Then you'll finish your service like any other soldier, and we'll find another way to get our asset out. But I should tell you, our asset is a Soviet scientist who's been giving us information about their nuclear weapons program. Information that could save millions of American lives if war breaks out. So if you say no, you'll have to live with knowing you could have helped save those lives. Elvis thought about his mother, about what she'd want him to do. Gladys had always been so proud of him for serving, for not taking the easy way out. She'd told him just before she died that he was finally doing something that really mattered, not entertaining people, but serving his country. "I'll do it," Elvis said. February 13th, 1959, Ray Barracks, 1600 hours. Elvis went through his regular duties like nothing had changed. Morning PT, weapons maintenance, a briefing on convoy procedures. But his mind was elsewhere, running through what Carter had told him in the pre-mission briefing that afternoon. The woman's name would be Katerina. She'd approach him at a bar called Der Goldene Löwe, the Golden Lion, in Frankfurt. She'd be wearing a red scarf. The recognition phrase, "You look familiar. Have we met before?" His response, "I don't think so. I'm not from around here." From there, the conversation would flow naturally. She'd be sympathetic, kind. She'd speak perfect English. She'd make him feel understood in a way he hadn't felt since his mother died. And Elvis would let her. "You all right, EP?" Charlie Hodge asked during chow. "You seem out of it." "Just tired. Didn't sleep good last night." "Yeah, I noticed you got up early. Where'd you go?" "Bathroom. Stomach bug or something." Charlie nodded, accepting the lie. Elvis hated lying to his friend, but Carter had been clear. No one could know. Not his friends in the unit, not his family back home, not even Colonel Parker, who'd been managing Elvis's career and finances while he served. If this worked, it would be like it never happened. If it didn't work, Elvis tried not to think about that. February 14th, 1959, Der Goldene Löwe, Frankfurt, 9:15 p.m. The bar was crowded, mostly GIs on weekend passes, drinking and trying to talk to German girls who barely understood English. Elvis sat at the bar, nursing a Coke. He didn't drink, never had, and waited. She appeared exactly when Carter said she would, 9:15 p.m. Red scarf around her neck, dark hair, striking features, maybe 30 years old. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, scanning faces until she found his. "You look familiar," she said, in lightly accented English. "Have we met before?" "I don't think so. I'm not from around here." She smiled. "May I sit?" "Sure." Her name was Katerina, just as Carter had said. She was from Czechoslovakia originally, she said, came to Germany before the war, stayed after. She worked as a translator now. Lonely work, she said, always listening to other people's words, never having real conversations of her own. Elvis knew it was all a lie, but he played along. He told her about missing home, about his mother, about feeling lost in the army, just another number instead of a person. "But you're not just another number," Katerina said softly. "You're Elvis Presley. The whole world knows your name." "That's the problem," Elvis said, and there was real emotion in his voice because this part wasn't a lie. "I can't just be myself anymore. Everyone wants something. Everyone expects something. Sometimes I think it would be better if I could just disappear, start over somewhere where nobody—" She leaned closer, and Elvis could smell her perfume, something expensive, exotic. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't sure if he was playing her or if she was playing him so well that he couldn't tell the difference anymore. "What if I told you," Katerina said quietly, "that there are places where you could start over, where people would appreciate you for who you are, not just what you can do for them?" "What kind of places?" "Places where American soldiers sometimes go when they're tired of fighting capitalist wars. Places where they find peace, purpose." Elvis's heart was pounding. This was it, the recruitment pitch. He was supposed to act interested but hesitant, let her feel like she was convincing him. You mean defect to the East? I mean find freedom, real freedom, not the illusion America sells. I don't know. That's a big step. Of course, I'm not asking you to decide tonight. Just think about it. I'll be here tomorrow night, same time. If you want to talk more, we'll talk. If not, she shrugged, then we had a nice conversation, and you go back to your base. She left money for her drink and walked out. Elvis watched her go, then sat there for another 20 minutes before leaving himself, just like Carter had instructed. Don't seem too eager, don't seem too resistant. Let her think she's winning. Outside, the February air was freezing. Elvis pulled his coat tight and started walking toward where he'd parked his car, a BMW 507 he'd bought a few months ago, one of the few luxuries he had allowed himself. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Private Presley. Elvis spun around. It was Sergeant Norwood. You did good. She's interested. Tomorrow night she'll make the real offer. You ready? Yeah, I think so. Don't think, know, because once you cross that border, there's no calling for help. You're on your own until we extract you. I understand. Norwood stepped closer, his voice dropping. There's something you should know, something Carter didn't tell you. Elvis felt his stomach drop. What? The asset we're extracting, it's not a scientist. It's a woman, an American nurse who was captured 6 months ago when her plane went down near the border. They've been torturing her for information about NATO medical facilities. She doesn't have any information to give, but they keep trying. She's dying, Presley. If we don't get her out in the next week, she won't survive. Elvis stared at Norwood. A nurse, an American woman being tortured while he slept safe in his barracks. And Carter had lied about it. Why? Because he thought Elvis wouldn't agree to help rescue one person? Or because he didn't think Elvis could handle the truth? What's her name? Elvis asked. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison, 26 years old, from Ohio. She has a little girl back home, 3 years old, hasn't seen her mother in 6 months. Elvis thought about Lisa Marie, his own daughter. She was just a baby, not even a year old yet. What if something happened to Priscilla? What if his daughter grew up without her mother because someone didn't do everything possible to bring her home? I'm still in, Elvis said. Let's get her out. February 15th, 1959. Der Goldene Löwe, 21:15 hours. Katerina was waiting when Elvis arrived. She'd secured a corner booth, more private. 2 drinks on the table, one for her, one for him. Elvis didn't touch his. You came back, she said. I've been thinking about what you said, about starting over. And I want to know more about these places, about what happens to soldiers who make that choice. Katerina smiled. They're taken care of, given new identities, new lives. They work for people who value their experience, their knowledge, and in return, they're protected, safe. What would I have to do? Just tell us about life on the base, troop movements, equipment. Nothing classified, nothing that would put your friends in danger, just information. In exchange, you get freedom. Elvis pretended to consider it. When? Soon, the next few days. We have people who can get you across the border. Once you're on the other side, everything will be arranged. What about my family, my daughter? They'll be told you deserted. It'll be painful for them at first, but in time, maybe arrangements can be made. Visits, letters. These things can be negotiated. More lies. Elvis knew that once he crossed into East Germany, his family would think he was a traitor. His career would be destroyed. His legacy would be that Elvis Presley betrayed his country, unless the mission succeeded. "Okay," Elvis said, "I'll do it." Katerina reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You're making the right choice. I'll contact you tomorrow with details. In the meantime, act normal. Don't do anything to attract attention." She left. Elvis sat there, his hand still warm from her touch, and wondered if Lieutenant Sarah Morrison was sitting in a cell right now, praying someone would come for her. He hoped she was still alive. He hoped this wasn't all for nothing.
Elvis looked back at the checkpoint disappearing behind them and realized there was no turning back now. He was behind the Iron Curtain. If the army couldn't extract him, he'd spend the rest of his life here, or in a Soviet prison, or dead in a ditch somewhere, another casualty of the Cold War that no one would ever know about. They drove for another hour deep into East Germany. The landscape was dark, rural, no lights except occasional distant farmhouses. Finally, they turned onto a dirt road and pulled up to what looked like an abandoned factory. "Out," Katerina said. Inside, the factory was anything but abandoned. Lights, equipment, armed guards, and in the center of it all, a man in a Soviet uniform, colonel's insignia, late 50s, hard face, eyes that had seen too much. "Elvis Presley," the man said in heavily accented English, "welcome to the German Democratic Republic. I am Colonel Volkov. You have made a wise decision." "Thank you," Elvis said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You must be tired, hungry. We have prepared quarters for you. Tomorrow we will discuss your contributions to peace and understanding between our nations." A guard led Elvis down a corridor to a small room. Bed, desk, chair, a window with bars. The guard locked the door from outside. Elvis sat on the bed and put his head in his hands. He was in a Soviet facility, locked in a room, surrounded by KGB agents. And somewhere in this building, he hoped, was Lieutenant Sarah Morrison. He had to find her, and he had to get them both out. But first, he had to survive the night. February 18th, 1959, Soviet facility, 0800 hours. They came for him at dawn. 2 guards, neither speaking English. They led him through corridors to an interrogation room. Colonel Volkov was waiting with Katerina. "Good morning, Mr. Presley. I hope you slept well." "Well enough." "Good. Now let us talk about why you're here." Volkov's smile disappeared. "You see, we know you didn't really defect. We know this is an American intelligence operation. What we don't know is exactly what you're trying to accomplish." Elvis's blood ran cold. They knew. The whole thing was blown. "I don't know what you're talking about," Elvis said. "Please, don't insult my intelligence. The Americans think they're so clever, using a celebrity as cover. But we've been watching you since you arrived in Germany. We knew when your handlers approached you. We knew about every meeting. We let it happen because we wanted to see what game your CIA was playing." Volkov leaned forward. "So here's what's going to happen.
You're going to tell me exactly what your mission is, and if you cooperate, maybe you'll live long enough to see America again. If you don't," he shrugged, "well, Elvis Presley will become a tragic casualty of Cold War espionage. The Americans will deny everything, and no one will ever know the truth." Elvis thought about Lieutenant Morrison, about her 3-year-old daughter, about all the lies he'd been told and all the lies he'd told himself. And he made a decision. "You want to know my mission?" Elvis said. "Fine, I'll tell you. But first, I want to see Lieutenant Sarah Morrison. I want proof she's alive." Volkov's eyes narrowed. "How do you know that name?" "Because that's my real mission, not intelligence gathering, not espionage, rescue. You've been torturing an American nurse for 6 months for information she doesn't have. I'm here to get her out." "Impossible. You couldn't possibly. Try me. You said you've been watching me. Then you know I'm not a spy. I'm just a soldier who was asked to help save someone's life. So either shoot me now or take me to her." Volkov stared at Elvis for a long moment. Then he laughed. A real laugh, not the cold intelligence officer laugh. "You Americans, so sentimental, so naive." He stood up. "Fine, I'll take you to her, but not because you asked, because I want you to see what happens to people who think they can play games with us." They walked through the facility, deeper underground. The temperature dropped. Elvis could hear water dripping somewhere. And then they reached a row of cells. Volkov stopped at one and gestured to the guard, who unlocked the door. Inside, huddled in the corner, was a woman, thin, bruised, wearing torn clothes, but alive. Her eyes lifted when the door opened, and Elvis saw something in them, a spark that hadn't been extinguished despite everything she'd endured. "Lieutenant Morrison?" Elvis said softly. She stared at him, confused. "Am I hallucinating? Are you Elvis Presley?" "Yes, ma'am, and I'm here to get you home." Volkov laughed again. Such bravery, such heroism. It would be touching if it wasn't so pathetic. "Guard, take him back to his cell. Tomorrow we'll begin his interrogation properly. And we'll make sure Lieutenant Morrison watches. Maybe that will loosen both their tongues." The guard grabbed Elvis's arm, but Elvis didn't resist, because he'd seen what he needed to see. Lieutenant Morrison was alive, and more importantly, he'd seen something else. The facility's layout, the guard rotations, the weaknesses. And in his pocket, hidden in a false bottom of his boot, was a small transmitter that had been broadcasting his location since the moment he crossed the border. The extraction team knew where he was. They knew where Morrison was. Now they just had to survive long enough for rescue to arrive. February 19th, 1959. Soviet facility, 0200 hours. Elvis was awake when the explosions started. He'd been counting the minutes, watching the guards through the small window in his door, memorizing their patterns. The first explosion took out the generator. The lights went out, plunging the facility into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in eerie red. Then gunfire, lots of it. Elvis's door burst open, but it wasn't a Soviet guard.
It was an American soldier in black tactical gear, face painted, automatic rifle in his hands. "Private Presley? That's me. Time to go. Stay close." They ran through corridors filled with smoke and chaos. The extraction team moved with precision, clearing rooms, neutralizing threats, moving toward Morrison's cell. Elvis had never seen anything like it. These weren't regular army. These were special forces, the best of the best. They reached Morrison's cell. Another explosion, and the door was open. Morrison was awake, terrified but ready. "Can you walk?" the team leader asked. "Yes." "Then move. We have 2 minutes before this place is swarming with reinforcements." They ran, through corridors, upstairs, out into the freezing February night. Vehicles were waiting, American military trucks that had somehow crossed the border. "Get in! Go! Go! Go!" Elvis helped Morrison into a truck, then climbed in after her. The convoy roared to life, and they were moving, racing through the darkness toward the border. Behind them, more explosions. The Soviets were responding, but too late. The Americans had struck hard and fast, and by the time the full Soviet response mobilized, the convoy was already crossing back into West Germany. Safe. February 20th, 1959. Ray Barracks, Friedberg, 1400 hours. Elvis sat across from Mr. Carter again. Same office, same desk, but everything felt different now. "You did well, Private Presley, better than we expected." "You lied to me about what the mission was, about who we were rescuing." "Yes, we did. Would you have agreed if we'd told you the truth?" I thought about it. Yes, I would have. You didn't need to lie. "Maybe, but we couldn't take that chance. Lieutenant Morrison's life was worth more than your feelings." "Is she going to be okay?" "Physically, she'll recover. Psychologically," Carter shrugged, "that'll take time. But she's alive. She's going home to her daughter because of you." Elvis nodded. "What happens now?" "Now, nothing. This never happened. You never set foot in that facility. There was no rescue operation. Lieutenant Morrison will be debriefed and sworn to secrecy. You'll finish your service here in Germany, go home to Memphis when your time is up, and return to your career." "And the Soviets, what do they do?" "They'll complain through back channels. We'll deny everything. It's how the game works. They know we got Morrison out. We know they know. But officially, none of it happened." Elvis Presley served the rest of his time in Germany without incident. He returned to the United States in March 1960 and resumed his career. He never spoke publicly about what happened in February 1959. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison recovered from her ordeal and was reunited with her daughter. She retired from the Army with full honors and lived a quiet life in Ohio. She never spoke about her time in captivity or about the famous soldier who helped save her life. The Soviet facility was abandoned shortly after the rescue. Colonel Volkov was quietly reassigned. Katerina disappeared into the shadows of Cold War espionage. The only official record of Elvis's service is routine. Private First Class Elvis Presley, U.S. Army, 3rd Armored Division, served honorably in Germany from October 1958 to March 1960. Nothing unusual, nothing classified.
But in a locked vault in Langley, Virginia, there's a file with Elvis Presley's name on it. Inside is a commendation from the Director of Central Intelligence, praising an unnamed civilian asset who participated in a successful rescue operation behind enemy lines. The commendation has never been made public. It never will be, because some secrets, the most important ones, stay buried forever. Elvis Presley went to Germany as a soldier. He came back as something else, a hero who could never tell his story, a man who'd seen behind the curtain of the Cold War and understood that not all battles are fought on stage, and not all victories end in applause. The Army made him keep the secret for 60 years, but now you know the truth about what Elvis did in Germany and why they had to erase it from history.